Coming up, Caimiao versus Moyen.
Welcome back to the desk, everybody. A German player has booked his ticket to the quarterfinals and survived the day 4 in Sintalol. Will his practice partner, Moyen, from the Deutsche Soccer Guild, be able to do the same, or will Caimiao be the lone hope for China going to day 4? My name is Frode, I'm joined by Brian Kibler, and this is our second decider match that's going to be seeding someone to the quarterfinals here.
Yeah, this is also a rematch. These players met in the initial match on the very first day of competition, and there, Moyen won. And actually, we were all a little bit surprised by some of what played out in that match, and we'll get back into more of that in just a moment.
That's right. It's a shot at redemption for both these players as they both have a loss, and there's no more room for error. Let's go ahead and meet our players. The first, as mentioned, could he be the second German player and another European in the quarterfinals? Please welcome Moyen.
His teammate Sintalol is already through to the quarterfinals. Can he join him there?
His opponent, the last remaining hope from China, please welcome to the stage, Caimiao.
His name means noob cat, but he's hoping to be the single Chinese representative to make it through to the top 8.
So last year I was even nervous playing at playoffs when there was no one watching and I wasn't even on stream. I think I fixed that problem.
想证明自己吧，因为我毕竟也在这个游戏上投入了4年还是5年的时间，然后想给自己一个交代吧。
He's playing a lineup, at least in terms of archetypes, that I was worried about.
然后因为我带了快攻卡组，然后打他的萨满，打他的术士都很好打。
He has some weird card choices that are that might be good against other decks, but not the decks I'm bringing.
我觉得我的对局只要走掉我的动物园，然后我应该能很大概率赢下比赛。
His Zulok isn't aggressive at all, so my slower decks have even more percentages against his Zulok. Also slightly favored against him. I think I should win against Caimiao.
我可能会在比赛之前练习更多，然后我可能会对整个对局把握得更好一点吧。
I just hope I will not be nervous on stage this time too.
It's a rematch from day 1 here, the Fall Championship, to go to the top 8. Moyen was able to best Caimiao previously with a very narrow victory, but it's not about the Warlock as you heard in the interviews. It was actually about Malygos Druid that struggled for Caimiao last time, taking games 4 and 5 defeats. And also, another thing to focus on is the ban strategies have changed.
Right. Yeah, and in the previous match, Caimiao had actually banned Moyen's Shutterwalk Shaman, which we discussed as being an unusual choice. As you all just saw, he said, oh, I think his Warlock and Shaman will be easy for me. Right. Well, in their very first match, Caimiao actually banned that Shaman and allowed the Odd Rogue through. And now he's decided to change things. He has banned the Odd Rogue instead.
That's right. And I think that's the one that matches up to the math on paper. And I think he's going to come out a little bit better this time in terms of how the percentages line up. So we'll see if the change in strategy ends up paying off for Caimiao. But that was my biggest criticism after day 1. When I saw Caimiao play, I said, you know what? Everything's fine, but your ban strategy, what happened there? And now he's retooled it the second time around, and perhaps that could be the key to his path to the top 8.
Yeah, Caimiao is the sole remaining player from China remaining in this event. And I think a lot of people have said that they feel like he is the player who has also just played the best of the representatives from China. A lot of players saying that, they talked through games with him and they're like, oh yeah, he seems to really, have a great grasp of what's going on and, willing to go back and look at what he perceives to have perhaps been mistakes he made before.
Yeah. Game 1 here, Zoo Warlock versus the Taunt Druid. Zoo Warlock is that deck for Caimiao. He's a point of concern. He says, if I can get a win with this deck, I should be good. Again, the previous time they played, Zulok was able to get that win. It was about his Malygos Druid. But, Taunt Druid is a deck that Zulok can prey upon because of how slow they get started. So Moyen's going to really have to hold off the aggression, and Wrath and Oaken Summons are 2 great tools early on to do that.
Witching Hour and Carnivorous Cube naturalize not so much, but the key is really eliminating the early aggression. If Moyen is able to just survive the early turns relatively unscathed, it can be difficult for Caimiao to continue to get damage in. The Void Ripper we see in Caimiao's hand here is one of the unusual choices in his particular build. Most versions don't include that card. He actually only has a single copy of Light Warden, which is part of why Moyen was saying that he thinks his deck is a bit less aggressive than the average Zoo.
Right, it's more teched towards the mid or late stages of the game as opposed to the early. But Caimiao is not devoid of early game plays. I like the Stumbling Imp, just puts out the most power on board. You can use Fungal Enchanter too following turn if your opponent doesn't, well, rather, if you draw the Happy Ghoul, and then you'll be able to have overwhelming pressure against your opponent.
And the second Oaken Summon is a pretty good draw for Moyen here, assuming he does not draw one of his Ironwood Golems immediately, because that will allow him to get some early defense on and stack up some armor as well. He expects that he will be playing the Oaken Summons next turn, so no reason to attack into one of these, decides to just go face.
Yeah, Oaken Summons is one of the real unsung heroes of this deck. A lot of people might look at, you know, the natural ramp, they might look at Wild Growth or other defensive tools, but Oaken Summons is also a very critical point of the deck, just so you can stabilize the damage, get that armor, and more importantly, make sure you're not drawing those Ironwood Golems, so instead drawing more powerful, high-impact cards.
Also serves very well to upgrade your spell stones, and that is not, not available in Moyen's hand right now, but can be powerful later on. But this Void Ripper tech from Caimiao could give him the opportunity to bust through this with only the loss of one minion.
Yeah, that is a potential opportunity here. In this matchup too, though, Void Ripper still just becomes good as time goes on when you hit the inevitable Sleepy Dragon.
It's true that Void Ripper is also very powerful late, and I think that's definitely something that Caimiao is thinking about here as far as his decision of whether or not to play it. However, if he just attacks his minions into this, he's going to be in an awkward spot. And like this, it may seem strange that he's making his Voodoo Doctor a bit weaker as far as attack is concerned, but a bit more health means it's more resilient against the hero power or a potential swipe.
Yeah, that's right. And now because of that...
Ooh, the Ironwood Golem draw is actually pretty bad for Moyen here. That's his only other minion that he could potentially fetch with that Oaken Summons. So now he will essentially have 4 mana, gain 6 armor, and just have to play the Ironwood Golem by itself.
If he ends up even choosing to go for that, Carnivorous Cube could just be Moyen's way to get presence onto the board while he has health to sacrifice.
Yep.
And then Ironwood Golem and Hero Power gives him more opportunity, or say he draws Wild Growth. Moyen's playing for the long term here, even though the Carnivorous Cube's a fantastic combo card.
And Caimiao here, he has an opportunity to Fungal Mancer up this board, which is an opportunity you rarely pass up as the Zoo Warlock when you're trying to pressure your opponent.
Yeah, the 4 damage is immediate, and you can save the Doom Guard for a future turn. In fact, Caimiao has a great turn 5 with Fungal Mancer, a great turn 6 with Prince Kelsa, Santa Chain Gang, and then into a Doom Guard plus whatever else he draws for the following turns.
Interesting choice on the Fungal Mancer positioning there. Decides to make all of his minions relatively threatening rather than stack and make a 5-attack Void Ripper. That's the name of that card.
Yes.
He could have, for instance, made a 4/4 and a 5/5, which would have gotten his biggest minion out of range of, say, Swipe. But here is just he's dividing it up such that there's no great opportunity for, say, Swipe plus Hero Power to kill the 2-health minion in the Voodoo Doctor. That's a very important Wild Growth that Moyen picked up, though. And in fact, the fact that he played his cube last turn and saved the Ironwood Golem for this turn is very valuable because it allows him to weave in the mana costs very efficiently to set up that Primordial Drake next turn.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, having that mana flexibility. And also, just stat-wise, Carnivorous Cube had the ability to trade into a 4-health minion, which is what you're expecting from your opponent on turn 5 with the Fungal Mancer. So excellent situation here that Moyen's put himself in, and hopefully that Primordial Drake can clean up most of the board. On Caimiao's side, this is kind of one of the nightmare scenarios in the sense that your opponent's curved and you haven't been put enough pressure, and you have this Doom Guard, but you feel like your window is closing.
It is, and once you get to the late stages of the game, it's very, very difficult to get much damage in past the taunts from the Druid. You don't have burn, really. You have just Soulfire that can damage the face. And here, Caimiao's, I think, trying to decide, okay, do I want to kill this to try and play around Primordial Drake since these 2/2s would die anyway? He could have, for instance, traded 3 minions into the cube or rather into the Ironwood Gold. That's it. Yeah, he's just gonna go play mana efficiently here. This will be a situation where almost his entire board dies to the Primordial Drake anyway, though.
Hedges against Primordial Drake. Still has enough power to deal with the Lich King. And timeout. Disappointed to see this, but not surprised. Looking for a 1-mana card. Picks it up. Although...
It draws a card.
It's kind of one of the redundancies of the Cobalt Librarian. Doesn't allow timeout to get a essentially free Doomguard. Just have to still pay a price in some capacity. But you never know if the Cobalt Librarian picks up another alternative play. You know, things like Dreadlord and whatnot are still very good minions in this spot to also fill out the curve.
A second Fungalmancer lets him kill this taunt on the board. It doesn't allow him to push damage like Doomguard would.
I like it.
That's a Dreadlord.
That is a Dreadlord. 9 mana is when things start to get really crazy because of the threat of Master Oakheart, but also because, you know, you just have to worry about big, fat taunts in the way. And look at Caimiao committing to clearing the board and maximizing his tempo.
Yeah. This Dragon Hatcher is going to guarantee at least a 4/8, perhaps a 4/12 taunt for Moyen here. And Caimiao does not have the ability to clear off even the 4/12 body, let alone the Dragon Hatcher, which threatens to continue to hatch dragons every turn. I think we're reaching the point of no return for Caimiao.
Yeah, this matchup tends to be very swingy. When Zoo wins, it usually overwhelms you. And then if you are the Taunt Druid, you tend to have a certain point where you just don't ever take damage again.
Yeah, once you cast 8 and then you cast 9, the game is usually over.
And the window is very tight. Caimiao does have a pretty decent, you know, board state, but with a second Sleepy Dragon that's playable this turn with another Primordial Drake, I mean, there's not much that Moyen has to do here besides wait for Caimiao to leave the game. Granted, he can just also go on the counter offensive.
It is 29 health worth of taunts on Moyen's side of the board. Not even close to that amount of power available for Caimiao. It is all over except the dragons marching down Gul'dan's face here.
I will say that if Caimiao does manage to find a Soulfire and deal with the board state, actually all the dragons have been pulled out already?
Yeah.
So it actually doesn't even matter about Soulfiring the 2/4, the damage is done. So if he can dodge Moyen's board reload, then Caimiao has this one window of opportunity to do something really big. Like, let's say he gets Solarium, and then he's able to push out a bunch of minions. That's the way he can get his ticket back in this game.
Like Solarium's into, what, Soulfire and Fungalmancer, and I guess?
Yeah, perhaps like another JK as Happy Ghouls. Moyen does have card draw. There are a handful of cards that don't really do much in this situation, but he just has to dodge them. He has a lot more that can have high impact. Primary just looking for ways to deal with the board state.
Spellstone with an Oaken Summons in hand. I think he wants to naturalize the Dreadlord here, perhaps. Because he can't actually get a 6 damage Spellstone here.
Right. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. If you naturalize, you do end up stabilizing against most of this board, if not all of it. Not scared.
Nope, gonna go ahead and Spellstone here. He can clear off everything but the Dreadlord, or he can clear off the Dreadlord by sacrificing his Dragon Hatcher.
Right.
I think that's what he wants to do, yeah. So he's gonna go ahead and pick apart the board with his dragons, trade off the Dragon Hatcher since there are no more dragons in his deck, and he doesn't want to use the Naturalize to effectively give Caimiao a Solarium of his own.
Right.
So I actually think that this ends up working out better for Moyen than firing off the Naturalize. It also upgrades his Spellstone for the next turn as well, so he could potentially dig a little bit and still have that cheap removal available. So really, again, Caimiao is kind of in a similar position. He really needs Fungalmancer. He needs... Soul Infusion is going to give him a 4/6 Voidwalker, but again, he's still just in this really rough spot where everything in his opponent's deck is bigger than his, and he's not really putting any pressure past this wall of dragons.
Yeah, Caimiao didn't pick up any healing so that his Light Warden can get stronger for bigger trades. And this position, it feels like a waste to toss in the Light Warden.
we had a brief appearance of a disconnect.
Saved! I was sweating a little bit,
Both
Killer.
players looked really
man,
confused there
like
for a second. I was like, oh dear, what's happening?
Yeah. The technology is here. At least for Moyen's game. Caimiao has no chance to really come back against this, although he does have the Solarium that gives him
All right, that is the
non-zero
desperation
chance.
play, but I mean, what can he find here that can deal with the Lich King and the remnants of this Sleepy Dragon? He can kill the Primordial Drake on board. I mean, he can play a bunch of stuff this turn. Okay. That's the Fungalmancer he needed a long time ago when he still had minions in play.
Yeah, and the thing is now Moyen is just on the offensive. He'll be able to get all this minion pressure. He's going to be able to stifle it, be able to start hitting his opponent's life total, and then Caimiao's just almost fatigued too. Like he'll tap, draw 2 cards a turn, and not really do much after. Moyen's being extra careful in this spot. Wild Growth Cycle, see if he can pick up something better. Dragon Hatcher is just completely useless in this spot.
It's a 2/4. Another branching paths. Can go digging for more cards. He does have an Obliterate and a lot of life to work with.
That's right.
He still has an additional Naturalize in his deck. He has not cast one this game, so he could potentially play this Naturalize and still have another in case he desperately needs to kill a Hadronox. I don't think he's in any kind of situation that could be described as desperate, however.
Yeah, I mean, as long as Moyen keeps the board state clean, he could use this one Lich King to pressure his opponent's life total. So, you know, Obliterate, Naturalize, clear off the board, hit your opponent for 8 with the Lich King. I'm all in favor for anything.
Oh yeah,
Get any permutation of that.
Get him. Leave your opponent with nothing in play. Taking his time though. Doesn't have that much left.
Okay.
Okay, will be swipe. Still ends up connecting. 8 to the face does not give Caimiao a potential handful of additional cards to kill that Lich King.
Yeah, it
Soulfire
does make the Lich King vulnerable to Soulfire, but I don't think that's the biggest of deals here. Or is it? I mean, this is a pretty good tempo swing if Caimiao picks up a cheap minion, which
does he have enough cards in his deck for this to really...
I mean, this is still a decent amount of pressure. It's
true. All right, Lich King's dead. There's a board available for Caimiao.
4, 5 from the hero power, 10 from the death core, 12 from the branch.
Okart brings out Hadronox, game ends.
Yeah. I mean, or you could have just drawn Hadronox. Caimiao is locked out.
Yeah, this is going to be a trade here. Naturalize on the Hadronox, get back a whole army of taunts, and it felt like it was over for a while, but Caimiao fought to the end, but this is the end of this game. Okay, kill me. I'll let you do it. No concede from Caimiao, and Moyen takes game 1 in this series.
I like it. He's a gentleman. Lets his opponent get the final hit. As Caimiao, he's also kind of just wandering off mentally, I think, in terms of that end stage of the game. He was just constantly looking to the side, not even looking at his screen. He's deep in thought for his next game. And I think right now, he's just trying to choose what is the best deck available right now since Taunt Druid is off the map. And the big question, too, in our minds is whether or not Moyen Shudderwalk Shaman will be the X factor, because previously, Moyen did not have to worry about Shudderwalk Shaman. In fact, because it was banned, Kip and I were looking at it and we're like, isn't this his worst deck in the matchup? Like, isn't this the deck that he wants to beat 3 times as opposed to ban it?
Yeah, and you know, it seems like Caimiao sort of recognized that as well and decided to reevaluate his ban strategy coming into this, and now perhaps trying to prey on that deck.
That's right. So that's just the first game in this best of 5. Remember, the winner of this moves on to the top 8, and the loser goes home. When we come back, we'll find out what happens between Caimiao and Moyen. First sweep from Moyen over the Zoo Warlock, and Moyen's gamble of a lineup here able to pay off as Sucho concedes.
I'm Jan Moy from Berlin. My lineup doesn't have polarized matchups, so it's quite close to 50% against most lineups. worried about one Saiyan board, which he plays all the slow decks I'm worried about. Some lineups of the Chinese guys, at least the archetypes, because they play Melee Druid, Tempo Mage, Outroken Zoo. The Warlock is straightforward, we just cycle your deck. It's good against aggressive deck, it's faster than some combo decks, but it's also like a low tier deck because it just loses to every faster combo deck. One deck specifically I thought about bringing. In the end I didn't have enough testing time to make sure it's good enough. It's Even Paladin. It's barely played on ladder and almost not played at all in tournaments. It might actually be really good in this tournament, but I just didn't have the time. I think in the champs, aggro lineups might actually be really powerful. I was a little afraid of bringing one myself because I expected my opponents to hedge a little bit more against it, which they didn't, but I think aggro lineups should be really strong in the field. You always have to be able to adapt to the situation because it changes from one moment to the other.
Welcome back to the Hearthstone Global Games. New for the second season, we're proud to introduce HGG Cheer. Cheering is a way to show support for players and regions while boosting your presence in chat using bits, a virtual good you can buy on Twitch. Along the way, you'll unlock Hearthstone packs, new Twitch emotes, and a unique card back, while the players earn a share of the revenue. We'll see you in the tavern.
我觉得我的风格应该是那种偏稳重一些的风格吧。然后我也研究了数据，然后分析了我这个小组的大概情况，然后选择了这种套牌。我可能会在比赛之前练习更多，然后我可能会对整个对局把握的更好一点吧。我4大卡组的话，就打一些抓快攻的卡组可能会劣势，然后打像赛言这种，去抓一些慢速的，套牌的话，应该是优势一点。然后我也不惧怕快攻内战，因为这次我准备的，方向就是快攻内战的方向。王羽烈是这个最受益于这碰碰计划的。然后我觉得蓝龙德应该是影响最小的吧，麦拉的不稳定元素吧。然后因为它可以一下过滤到自己10张牌，然后可以对战局发生立刻的转变，然后我觉得很有意思，也很厉害。
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fall Championships. As you can see on your screen, Tyler and Tincho, and apparently PNC, fellow Argentinian player, are all cheering for their favorite players. And more importantly, I want to give a shout out to this lovely crowd who's shown up on their Saturday in their free time to join us for some Hearthstone action. They're playing Fireside Gatherings. Give yourselves a round of applause, audience, for being able to join us, as we are really thankful that you guys spend your free time here at the Blizzard Arena. But enough of the happy-go-lucky rainbow feelings. It's time for more Hearthstone serious business.
Down to business. And this will be the Shaman from Moyen that we did not see in the earlier matchup. That, as we mentioned, could be perhaps the best chance for Caimiao to get his wins in this particular series. Moyen playing the same version, in fact, his version, as Sintalal. Sintalal, as we saw earlier, advanced to the quarterfinals, playing a lineup that he said he essentially got from Moyen. And now we'll see if it will also do his fellow German justice in bringing him to the elimination round as well.
Yeah, we've seen this matchup several times throughout the weekend, and it all kind of depends on how Oddro can get their aggression going. Caimiao with the turn 1 Southsea deckhand to pressure, and usually the only thing that they can do is removal spell or play the Glacial Shard. Moyen's going to take that threat very seriously.
Caimiao now has the all-too-common dagger up on turn 2. He does have the Hench Clan Thug to follow it up.
Yeah, Caimiao actually has a pretty great hand for turns 3 and 4. He's got the ability to set up Hench Clan Thug, and assuming he doesn't get answered, can follow it up with Tar Creeper Cold Blood, which will be a lot of ways to protect the Hench Clan Thug from any minions that get put onto the board, and also just keep the pressure on. That being said, Moyen does have Volcano and Hex, So it seems like Moyen has a lot of the great tools that he'll need in order to stave off this aggression.
He does. Crucially, that Volcano will be able to prevent things from really getting out of hand from Caimiao here, because be able to clear off the board, going potentially with the coin going into a Fungal Mancer turn, and that's the really scary swing that Oddrogue is capable of. And even now, just with this Glacial Shard, he could just freeze this, decides, no, I'm just going to coin Hex and ensure there's no threat whatsoever. But as you mentioned, you know, there's still Tarkreeper Coldblood. Hex leaves a frog behind, and this could be a battle frog.
That's right, you get to see Frog get revenge.
Let's go, you turn me into a frog? Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it can even attack here is still pretty big, because the most important thing with this Coldblood is to try and double dip. Try to hit multiple times. And from the looks of it, seems like it will, unless Moyen either removes it or freezes it.
Frog champ, battle frog, get him.
Yeah. Storm's not that great. Serenite Chain Gang allows Moyen to set up a wall of defense, and you know, force Caimiao to attack into it, assuming that there's no Fungal Mancer. Fungal Mancer is the scariest thing. It is, but you can't afford to play around that. And if your opponent does extend, you have Volcano.
Yeah, it's a Firefly draw, so enables SI to pick away at one of these.
This guy's toast.
So now Caimiao can trade the frog in, use his weapon to ensure that he keeps a bit of health on that Tarkreeper.
Yes. You trade in the Tarkreeper, you do manage to squeeze a little bit more damage, but right now the board state matters a lot more, so you're better against Lightning Storm, which also can start being a cumulative stack, right? If you have Fungal Mancer, that means that Tarkreeper is even that much harder to remove.
Right. Moyen has a lot of life to work with still. He's managed to answer everything pretty well so far, so a lot of different ways he could play this. He could choose to Volcano this board away just to ensure things are clear. That would leave him with 4 mana the next turn to either Lightning Storm or Chain Gang. He could also just play the Chain Gang, soften things up, and potentially clear the Lightning Storm, even if the board gets Fungal Mancered.
Yeah. Every turn from turn 5 onwards is just scary for the amount of tempo Oddrogue can get because of the threat of Vilespine Slayer, Fungal Mancer, even just grabbing the board with Giggling Inventor can sometimes be very scary on Caimiao's side. So I like if Moyen continues to play very defensive. He has 3 forms of AoE.
Right.
I think he's in a pretty good spot as long as he doesn't give Caimiao a really strong window to punish him.
Definitely taking his time on this turn, figuring out exactly how he wants to navigate it.
Oh, interesting, Volcano. So part of the reason why I was thinking about Serenite Chain Gang and Glacial Shard is because you get to freeze the middle minion. The middle minion is the scariest, and it also makes Fungal Mancer more awkward. The only problem is that I think Moyen realizes that Serenite Chain Gang on the board is great for defense, but his counterattack options for trades are extremely poor in the face of a Tarkreeper. So he gets a more expensive card out of the way, and then next turn he still has the mana anyways to develop Serenite Chain Gang.
No, Caimiao with a pretty poor reload here. He has great burst potential, great reaction potential with Leroy Coldblood or the Flame Elemental with Vilespine, but nothing really great to reload his board. So, I mean, this could easily just be a dagger turn, or probably not dagger Flame Elemental, because he wants to be able to at least enable that Vilespine without using a major resource.
I mean, what are you trying to Vilespine in this matchup these days, though? Like, if you, I mean, yes, you can Vilespine the Tempo Grumble, but that's not going to happen for at least 2 turns.
I mean, I think even just Vilespining a Manatide Totem or half a Chain Small Minion, like just gonna play the Flame Elemental and dagger to the face. That has got to feel pretty bad as the Oddrogue against a slow controlling deck.
It's honestly as bad as it gets, but I like that Caimiao at least has that Coldblood in his back pocket, so that if he has any cheap minion, he can get the best of both worlds. Coldblood and Vilespine is a combo activator. This hurts, though. Giggling Inventor finds his way into the hand.
And Giggling Inventor is a pretty decent draw. He can kill one of these Chain Gangs and then re-dagger while deploying at least something that has a decent chance of surviving. But as the game goes on, this is worse and worse for Caimiao, because Moyen, we see he has Hagatha in hand. He has 2 Life Drinkers in hand. He just is building toward not necessarily even the combo, but just the ability to stabilize and generate resources and squeeze Caimiao out of the game.
Yeah, I mean, the Shutterwalk Shaman doesn't need Shutterwalk whatsoever to win this
As
matchup.
Sintalal has shown us.
In fact, Sinto should just take Shutterwalk out of his decks after this tournament.
That's what he's saying
because,
in the
you know,
in his interview with Cora. He was just saying, I don't know, I'll cut it.
you can't burn Shutterwalk if it's not in your deck, Gibbler.
Thinking face. Well, Moyen here, this is a board that he's got to be concerned about the threat of a potential Fungal Mancer. Because Fungal Mancer is a card that, thinking about how Caimiao has navigated the past few turns, makes sense to be in his hand. You could think, okay, maybe you have Leroy, maybe you have Bilespin, maybe you have Baku, but Fungal Mancer, based on the way that Moyen has played this, puts him in an awkward spot, and I like this a lot. As you mentioned earlier, the freeze your middle guy is very powerful at shutting down the possibility of Fungal Mancer value happening this turn. And there's Fungal Mancer, so Moyen rewarded for that freeze.
Yeah, that Fungal Mancer is less than ideal in this spot.
He can still use it. He does still have the Divine Shielded Annoyotron he could theoretically value trade with or just get some damage in face, but he does miss that damage from the middle minion that gets the buff as well.
Mushroom power!
It's going to use his Cold Blood. Looks like Caimiao instead. Oh, he is going for it.
All right, get him.
I like it too. A nod to the mind control techs.
And one thing about this too is that this actually puts Caimiao in a very powerful position if Moyen were to Hagatha this turn. Because Hagatha doesn't clear off the Divine Shield 4 health minion, even with the bump from the Life Drinker.
Ooh, that Earthshock's a nasty draw. So Moyen, at first, his best clear was a Volcano or a Lightning Storm, but that overloads you. Now he has the opportunity to clear off most of this board without having to commit to it.
And it even is a spell damage Earthshock here. So
That is especially
he
nasty.
kills the Annoyotron straight up.
Okay.
Gonna Storm as well and Life Drinker, so that does help him very much seize the board.
I kind of like that too, because that lets your Life Drinker not only stay on the board, but also push damage right back.
I actually think that Moyen was about to pull the trigger on the Lightning Storm. I think he may be reconsidering, just based on the fact that it overloads him and prevents him from playing Hagatha next turn.
Right.
Because getting Hagatha down, gaining the armor, starting to get value every time you do play a minion is just such a high impact play when you're on the plan of starve your opponent of resources. Yeah, it looks like he's changing his mind, going to take the value trade here rather than the straight up trade and leave himself with the ability to play Hagatha next turn.
Yeah, I think area effect cards are at a premium when you are really far ahead as well. Like, usually people think about it from behind, but you have to think about ways you could lock the game out from the odd road, because Moyen feels like he's in a really comfortable spot. What are ways you can lose? Unstable element from the Myra's unstable element is drawing the rest of the deck, and then power loading the board turn after turn is how you can lose. So I like holding on to this Lightning Storm. Caimiao just doing what he can with his hand. And I think at this stage too, if I'm Caimiao, I'm heavily considering if I just want to hit face every single turn, because I don't know how else I can generate that damage. Right. Yes, Leroy's in the hand, and yes, if you don't kill off this 1/1, then Hagatha might be able to wipe most of the board. But are you in that position to be bargaining like this?
Yeah, that's the thing is, yes, you can play around Hagatha by protecting your Vilespine here, killing the 1/1, but you do 2 less damage to your opponent. And are you going to beat Hagatha anyway? Is one of the things you need to be asking yourself. And I think that if your opponent has Hagatha, you basically need to draw the unstable element to have any kind of chance as it is.
I mean, it is using 2 damage to push 3, so you do net 1, assuming that this Vilespine Slayer can even attack.
Well, it's against exactly Hagatha that you do that too.
True. Oh boy.
Ooh.
Acolyte of Pain and Volcano. There's 7, 8.
He's got it if he wants it. He can Acolyte into Volcano. It's even a spell damage Volcano. So this is wipe your board, draw 3 cards. And as we said, yes, he protected himself from Hagatha. He did not protect himself from Volcano. So is this an instance of, well, could that damage matter down the road? And given the fact that Moyen is now just this far ahead, I'm not sure that that's going to happen, but here we go. This is 10 more. Moyen down to 10.
Yeah, but that's the most threatening individual card in the Odd-Road deck. And Hagatha plus Giggling Inventor will all but lock out Caimiao from dealing direct damage to end the game right now. It has to be Unstable Element.
Deckhand not going to cut it, and he can get the damage in, and he might as well.
Yeah, and now his hope is that Moyen has very slow situational cards. But almost no matter what Moyen has in his hand, will have some way to deal with the board state.
And one big thing here is just Moyen has Giggling Inventor. That's a card that not many Shutterwalk Shaman decks do have, but is going to almost just lock Caimiao out of even being able to find a way out with Unstable Element. This is now 4 attacks you need. He absolutely has to find Tidal Surge. Oh dear.
Love it. Just another way to ensure that you're going to be able to destroy anything that Caimiao plays. Caimiao, I feel like he's kind of resigned himself that this game is over.
He needs like Unstable Element.
Oh!
Okay, he needs Blood Knight off of this.
Okay. Oh, Blood Knight would be massive. Oh, he got it.
All right.
I'm out of cards.
He also ripped it before he had an opportunity to think if he wanted to play his own Argent Squire to make this even bigger. But perhaps the threat of Hex means that he just wants to spread out his threats as opposed to leave them stranded as single 1/1s.
All right, well. Zola for the giggles if he wants it. Oh,
is
dear.
Moyen playing Quest Rogue Shutterwalk Shaman?
So Moyen could Zola his Giggling Inventor, play Giggling Inventor, attack the original body, and Crushing Hand on that Blood Knight, leaving Caimiao and even kill one of these Dire Moles, leaving with just a single 1/3 against another swarm of Annoyotrons.
That just looks game-ending to me.
I mean, there is, you need to consider, okay, well, does he have a second Blood Knight available? Does my second Giggling Inventor end up being in a position where I'm disadvantaged? So maybe he wants to navigate it a bit differently. Maybe the Giggling Inventor is not the direction he wants to take. Well, it's got an embarrassment of riches of Giggling Inventors. He just farsighted can make the exact same play I just mentioned.
Right. It's as if he paid full value or full cost, excuse me, for this Giggling Inventor anyways.
And now we can even just Healing Rain in addition.
It also pushes 3 damage, and this is very relevant too because Caimiao has even less wiggle room. Oh, just ends up trading, taking the safe route. No need to give his opponent an opportunity to crush him. And I think Moyen recognizes at this point, yes, he's just a control shaman. I mean, look at that hand. That is pretty much all of Shaman's removal tools.
Who needs Shutterwalk? He is just playing removal after removal. Life gain in his hand with the Tidal Surge off of Hagatha plus the Healing Rain. This is essentially lights out.
I'm looking for some way for Caimiao to try to find a way to win the board, assuming we don't know Moyen's hand. But no matter how you cut it, let's say you play 3/3 drop in this position. Well, he already kind of forewent that option by attacking before playing Hench Clan Thug. So what's your plan now?
Looking to go with the Tark Reaper into Hench Clan. And he's just playing it all out. He's just going to say, okay, you've got to have nothing. All those Hagatha spells, they've got to be ice fishing into Temic Might. And the cards you have from your own deck are, I don't even know what they could be.
Yeah,
Manatide Totems.
He actually wants him to Moyen to have like double Healing Rain and like nothing else.
Right.
Because there's nothing that impacts the board state except for his own life total. But double Lightning Storm should wrap this one up. Moyen's gonna win game 2 and be on match point to join his fellow European and practice partner in the top 8.
Yeah, and Germany has had such an incredible performance so far at the championships this year. Put several players through with Bunny Hopper and Viper already in the spring season. Sintalal waiting in the quarterfinals already. The opposite is true of China. China has had very poor performances, not just at this tournament, but dating back even to their home turf in Shanghai last year. If If Caimiao loses, it will be second time that China does not advance a single player out of groups.
Right, and it's appropriate that you brought up Shanghai because that was a year ago.
It was
the second season for the HCT 2017 year. We went to Shanghai, and only one player was able to win a single series, and that was Trunks.
Yep.
But Trunks also got eliminated before he even got to the top 8. He finished in 9th place, 3rd in his group. And so once again, we return to the same spot. Will China once more, for the second season of HCT in a year, go home very disappointed?
Yeah, and I mean, it's looking that way right now. Caimiao down 0-2, and his remaining matchups don't really look that good overall.
All right, well, we'll find out. Moyen only has one deck left in his even Warlock, and Caimiao has to beat it 3 times with his aggro lineup. It's going to be tough. We'll find out what happens when we return to the Fall Championship.
All right, before we find out if the fate of China will continue on in this tournament, we have another audience member here who has graciously agreed to join me for the Guess the Card game. Now, tell me what your name is.
Anna.
Anna, I actually know a little bit about you, I will say. I've done my research. Recently competed in WESG Women's, competed in Supergirl, finished 2nd place last year. So I know that you know your stuff, Anna. And I'm counting on you to be able to guess these cards that we've got here. And of course, we have the audience with us today and tomorrow as well that are gonna give you a little bit of help if you need it. Before we did the puzzle game, this one's gonna be a little bit different. Essentially, different pieces of text are going to pop up, or a mana cost, or an attack or health point. And from there, you're going to have to guess that card. It's very aptly named. So why don't we go ahead and get it right underway. We've got 2 cards for you to attempt to guess. All right, first one coming up.
Ziliax.
Okay, Ziliax is a very good guess, because Ziliax has a whole bunch of different tags, and Lifesteal is one of them.
Ooh. Yeah, I don't. And it is a common, right? Like that gem is correct?
I don't believe so. With Battlecry, my inkling is that this is a card that we have been... Okay, what in the world? Mana crystals? Hey, audience, what are we doing here? I'm assuming it's not Leroy. Oh!
Oh, if you have 10 mana crystals, yeah, gain lifesteal. It's, I think it's a Warlock card.
It's a Shaman card. It's a 2-mana, 2/3 Shaman card.
No, don't have a name.
Audience, what is it? Omega Mind? It is Omega Mind. Yeah, this is actually really underutilized right now. Not
Haven't played with it.
really good in Arena and pretty good if you can get it off of Shudderwalk Shaman, the 1-mana Discover. One more card. Let's see what it's gonna be. Darn it! This is what happens when I'm not casting. Okay, Death Rattle.
Could be a lot of different things. I don't know. Oh.
4 health.
Not Leroy.
Not Leroy.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh. I heard Piloted Sky Golem up there, but I don't know if that's correct.
I mean, it could technically be Piloted Sky Golem. I think we're sticking in Standard right now, though. So, Max with Death Rattle. It's Blight Nozzle Crawler. Yeah, I don't know that we were going to get that one. Nobody's really playing Death Rattle Rogue right now, but you know what? Anything can happen. Go and throw Blight Nozzle Crawler into one of your decks, or maybe you're even going to be playing Rogue in the upcoming Hallows and Dual Class arenas, because it's a really good arena card. Thank you so much for joining us, Anna. Really appreciate you coming up here and playing a little game with us. But now it's time to see if Caimiao can bring this series back and keep China in this tournament. Let's head back into game number 3.
Thank you very much, Cora, for that awesome break and intermission as we return to the serious children's card game business that we have been attending to. That is Caimiao versus Moyen. And Caimiao is in dire straits. Down 0-2, he's on match point Moyen's on match point. And if Caimiao loses this, so does China. as he is the remaining representative from that region. Let's go into Even Warlock versus Odd Rogue. And that is an opening hand that is good in most matches for Even Warlock, although Moyen would probably like a little bit more early game just to ensure his safety against early game drops.
I do want to point out before we get too deep into our very serious children's card game, I did type Blight Nozzle Crawler in the chat before it was revealed. So.
All right, so you're a game designer, you're a streamer, you are, you know, one of the leading representatives of Fantastic Caster. And yes, you are also great at Hearthstone Trivia.
All right, well, Firefly turn on Caimiao.
Actually, it's Firefly Cold Blood. This is one of the scariest openings possible for Even Warlock, even dating back to when Miracle Rogue was still fairly popular against Even Warlock in the beginning of rotation.
And boom, that is 5 damage, threatening 5 more. Moyen here with a stubborn Gastropod. This is a decision that you may include in your deck because you want to play against other Even Warlocks. You expect a lot of Even Warlock in the metagame. It's very powerful. Pretty weak here. You'd much rather have something like a Plated Beetle or a Doomsayer.
Yeah, without Hellfire,
Ow.
This could already start spelling the end of the game. And I know that might seem a little preemptive, but just look at the state of Moyen's hand. We kind of talked about how great his early game was, or sorry, his mid game was with the Mountain Giant. That won't do you no good if you're dead.
He's going to play Mountain Giant in turn 3 and die.
Yes.
there's Hedgeclad Thug. He's already taken 5 damage here. It looks like Caimiao is actually going to slow his roll a little bit, though, recognizing, okay, well, if I attack with my Flame Elemental here, that puts Moyen to 15. He could coin out a Hooked Reaver. I want to avoid that possibility and sort of slow things down a little bit here.
Right. And also, if he plays his Hedgeclan Thug, he is vulnerable to a coined Hellfire to clear the board, and then all of his momentum is lost, and then Moyen's at that sweet spot life total where he can play that Hooked Reaver or just lock out Caimiao if he's able to develop anything big.
And Caimiao, he is waiting, he is debating. The interesting thing, if he does attack, he puts Moyen down to 13, attacking with both. He does have the possibility to punch through the Hooked Reaver with his 5/2 as well as the rest of his board. And well, it is just a giant for Moyen. And that is a deadly poison. Even a Blood Knight drawn, so he could put himself in a situation where he has a 6/6 Blood Knight as well.
I like that a lot. You are still relatively safe from AoE unless your opponent trades his own Mountain Giant in. Henchcan Thug, not too bad either. It just sets up... Actually, no, it's perfectly fine too, because I was thinking about Defile.
Well,
your opponent's clearly shown
3, right. You put your opponent down to 5 life, say Giant. Well, there's a Hooked Reaver, so that's definitely a key card, but is it enough? There's a 4 damage dagger on the board.
Right.
Say he attacks the Giant into the Henchclan Thug, plays Hooked Reaver. So now he has a 7/7 against he's just 1 damage off lethal.
What about Acidic Swamp Ooze with the Sun Fury Protector? Is that good enough?
Acidic Swamp Ooze and Sun Fury could put him... Well, Sun Fury is actually perhaps even better than the Hooked Reaver here. And yeah, the Swamp Ooze does get rid of the dagger, so he gets 8 health on the taunt. That's more powerful than the Hooked Reaver this turn, too.
I wonder.
Yeah, plus you would force your opponent to re-dagger if they need to get that extra burst in.
Now, there is the thought of, do you kill the Henchclan Thug, which is lower attack right now, but can go to 5. But if you kill the dagger, then they'd have to re-dagger to actually get that to be as strong as well. Oh, he can set up a Defile.
He can.
That's right. Yeah, that's what he's doing. He's going to go ahead and attack and Defile.
I like this.
So now there is a 8/2 with taunt and a Hooked Reaver left in the hand.
Oh,
that deckhand,
so close.
1 damage off lethal.
Right. Again, kind of one of the things to know, Blood Knight had that opportunity to be established and be beyond the Defile.
If he had played Blood Knight rather than the Henchclan Thug, it could have been a different situation.
Deep breath, as he knows that 1 damage is all that separates him from death at this stage. But with a Shroom Brewer draw, that is sight for sore eyes, to say the least.
Can even coin out the stubborn gastropod if he wants to get a second body
Right.
away.
Just absorb the dagger hit.
This is absolutely tense. Just one life for Moyen. Firefly, the draw for Caimiao. That does not do what he needs.
The good news for Caimiao is that he has seen one defile, so the Giggling Venom is much more likely to stick. Looking at Moyen's deck list for a Mossy Horror, does not look like he has one, as perhaps he was anticipating other matches that he wanted to tech for.
And now Caimiao, no need to play around Hellfire here by attacking into the Hooked Reaver, since, well, your opponent's at 1.
Yeah.
He would die.
Still a tense situation. Giggling Venom is very scary because of the threat of Fungal Mancer.
Does go for it anyway, clears it off. This avoids potentially getting Spellstoned and losing your larger minion. He needs the damage on the Hooked Reaver here to punch through. Got to get that dead. But there is a Shroom Brewer. The Shroom Brewer could heal that up, and that may be more valuable to him, the life on that taunt, keeping all the minions at bay rather than just lifing himself.
Yep. You already know the last card in Caimiao's hand. It is the Flame Elemental token given from the Firefly. Your opponent would have to draw 2 out of 21 chances for that Vile Spine Slayer to punish you. I like this too. Moyen values the state of the board more than just eliminating a dagger that's going to come every turn in regardless. Is that a Vile Spine Slayer?
It is. Caimiao draws the Vile Spine and stays alive. Moyen with a look of surprise, as that one life is not enough, and China stays alive.
Is he surprised though, Kibler? Are you ever surprised when that happens? China barely hanging in there, and Caimiao able to get a much-needed victory. He has to do that 2 more times though. He still has his Zoo Warlock, which is quite possibly the most difficult matchup in this entire spread, and then he has his Malygos Druid, which, you know, still has a pretty good fighting chance against even Warlock compared to Zoo Warlock.
Yeah, and Caimiao could have also drawn SI Agent to just go to the face
That's
over
true.
that as well.
Yeah, he could have gotten direct.
So it was not just the Vile Spine Slayer that was a potential out for him, but it was certainly one that made healing the Hooked Reaver sort of the biggest issue.
Right. In that specific instance, the Vile Spine Slayer was exactly what the doctor ordered. And now Caimiao will choose between his Zoo and his Malygos Druid here. Now, Malygos Druid versus even Warlock still can kind of go either way, but I feel like Zoo is so tough to get the victory because they have so many forms of area effect with Hellfire, Defile. Like even the Dread Infernal sometimes is good enough to clear stuff.
Shall be mine.
And I think Caimiao agrees. He's going to save Zoo for last and try to get his Malygos Druid over this hump.
Yeah, Moyen full mulligans his hand. He knows he needs to put the pressure on since the game goes long. That can be in the favor of the Druid, and he does not have a hand with early game action. 2 8-drops to open things out.
Yeah, really wants that Mountain Giant. Pressure the life total for Druid. Caimiao is ready with the Naturalize, as you were talking
There's a
about.
Giant, though.
Job's done.
The early game is all about the threat checks. If Warlock presents the questions and Druid has to provide the answers, granted, if they trade evenly, it all comes out who falls first. Does the Druid falter in his removal or his ramp, or does the Warlock falter in his board development state? And then we'll have some fireworks at the very end if Druid wants to combo or just clear and stall until they can get to that point.
It's also one of the reasons that it's so important that you have Giant, because Giant demands Naturalize as an answer. And that Naturalize refills you with cards, so you're less likely to actually run out of gas.
True.
And it does find the Vulgar Homunculus, which gives him something to play to actually get a little bit of pressure on the board, and also does free up his hand a little bit to develop that Giant and not get cards burned by Naturalize.
You know, we've seen players' different opinion on this specific situation, whether or not you want to life tap with a Mountain Giant in hand right now. Because of the threat of Naturalize, overdrawing some cards, which could be important if you end up burning a very specific threat you need.
The big issue here is not just do you potentially burn cards, but also lowering your life for Hooked Reaver and potentially playing around their burn. The fact that Moyen has Hooked Reaver in hand leads me to believe he would lean toward tapping this turn, but he disagrees. He's just going to go ahead and play the Giant straight up. Maybe has a read on Caimiao for having Naturalize anyway. Ooh. coin into Nourish for mana. Gonna go ahead and naturalize the Giant and drop an Arcane Tyrant. So Caimiao is not going quietly this game.
Yeah. Ramp City. Caimiao has Nourish and Wild Growth ready as a backup. Twilight Drake being burned. That's one of the cards that Moyen was hoping wouldn't go down to the overdraw.
It is worth noting that unless you play a game where you draw your entire deck, that card might have well have been at the bottom. So it's not really a huge concern in this style of matchup where generally you either win or you lose somewhere in the middle of your deck.
True. Still hurts though.
It feels bad. It does feel bad.
If you're Moyen,
Yeah.
your Caimiao, you're a little bit
Like, all right, at least there's less likely there's going to be a Drake here. And it is information that your opponent gets.
Well, one of the things too is that that Surfer Protector was drawn as well, and one of the arguments for not life tapping is because if you do pick up a 2-mana play and you happen to pick up your second Giant, you can squeeze it in on 5 mana by playing Mountain Giant for 3 and a Sunfury Protector or Volcro Homunculus.
Caimiao here, he is becoming Malfurion the Pestilent with Spiders. I always love that.
Yeah, Spiders gamers.
So Spiders here essentially checks Moyen's threat development potential. He needs to deal with these spiders before he can actually generate threats himself. And that is a tough situation for Moyen because, as you mentioned, a lot of what this matchup is about is who breaks first. Does Moyen stop presenting threats, or does Caimiao run out of answers? Well, Moyen, he now has to answer the answers from Caimiao before he can develop threats, and that gives Caimiao all the time in the world to ramp up.
Oh, yeah. And it feels like such a waste to use removal on these spiders too. Something that was given essentially for free for the Death Knight.
Yeah, Moyen here, he looks very intense trying to figure out the best line of play. Vulgar Homunculus looks to be how he's going to start things off. And he needs to worry about his life total too. Caimiao is at 40. That is a really tough nut to crack in terms of actually ending this game. All right, well, he is going to just go ahead and play out 2 small minions, hoping to use them to clear off these spiders.
Yeah.
Now, Caimiao, if he wants, he can ramp up, perhaps draw some cards with this this Nourish, ramp up with Wild Growth. That would prevent him from being able to answer these minions on the board without using his Spellstone. Can't just hero power them down. He is going to draw, though. He has no Ultimate Infestation yet. Which makes me think perhaps we'll see him use even just Spellstone into Punch, or keep one of these around at least to threaten the development for Moyen. The Spellstone's pretty powerful here. This is a 6 damage Spellstone at this point. He could Wild Growth to ramp himself up to 10, but without Ultimate Infestation already in hand, he may want to hold on to those to cycle once he gets to 10 mana naturally.
Yeah, so one of the things about what just happened here is that Caimiao's forced to use a Spellstone because he wants to keep a spider on board. This is the one thing that I didn't really like necessarily about the draw Nourish play, because now he used what should be one of his more premium removals outside of Naturalize. Spellstone is so efficient and can answer a variety of minions from Even Warlock.
He can still just punch this down and have 2 spiders on the board. And this puts him in a position where he's pressuring with these spiders even. He's getting damage in. Moyen is down now to, well, 15. So he can drop potentially big threats here, but there's 2 spiders in play. I was gonna actually, the Giant plus double Defile. This does answer both of the spiders. And now, Caimiao, as you mentioned, he did use a fairly premium removal effect. He does have Starfall, though, which can remove this thanks to the damage from the Defiles.
Yeah, it ends up working out okay. However, Caimiao doesn't get to develop his threat with the Lich King because of that. So it's a awkward spot once again for Caimiao. And his opponent's at 15, so he has to prepare for the Hooked Reaver.
He does, and I think that's part of why he's sort of mousing over that branching paths, perhaps trying to dig to find Naturalize or potentially Ultimate Infestation to really get the engine running.
Right. A lot of people might look at, why would you attack into your opponent 215? Well, Caimiao was hoping that Moyen was forced into a position where he couldn't develop the Hook Reaver because of the spiders. And more importantly, if Moyen keeps lowering his health, he might be able to win the game through just the Moonfires and Malyghost at 12.
Moyen was also in a position where he could just tap into Hooked Reaver anyway, So
True.
You're not really denying it outside of your opponent exactly using all their mana over turns. But now Lich King comes down.
I don't know. It still opens up the possibility of double Hook Beaver.
It does. It does. That is a terrifying prospect. Caimiao with still no Ultimate Infestation, no Malagos.
Yep, all in the bottom half of his deck. Wild Growth to cycle.
He does have a lot of time, and Moyen is at a very low life total.
Oh boy.
All right, well, Lich King, the Lich King action right here. Moyen
There can only be one Lich King.
Well, and there must be one. He does not quite have the mana to Spellstone plus the Dread Infernal to clear this off and develop a minion.
But he does have anti-magic shell, and that's a really difficult effect for Druid to deal with.
It's true. It is true. He could just play Hooked Reaver anti-magic shell attack. That gives him a 10/10 Lich King, a 9/9 Reaver.
I'm trying to look to see if there's a better alternative. Maybe if it's just Bone Mare, but it's still in the same position.
I feel like the anti-magic shell is more attractive here because you prevent your opponent from possibly being able to kill your Lich King with damage. Perhaps he hits Obliterate, like Caimiao. I believe it's Obliterate. Can't tell Obliterate from Death Grip. Just from
looks
that
like Death Grip.
whirly part of the art.
Obliterate has a little bit more fancy.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah. Plus, I see a hand stealing something.
Yeah, Hooked Reaver plus anti-magic shell gives you 2 huge minions that, again, it is a Death Grip. You were correct. So, Caimiao could punch down the Lich King if he does play the anti-magic shell here. But that's 10 damage, and does force the use of his mana in an awkward way. And even then, there's still a 9/9 that can't be targeted. So naturalized or damage-based removal, it's not going to cut it.
Caimiao is also eyeing Moyen's life total, and it's at 13.
13 does mean that he doesn't need to get much more damage in order to win the game if he does just find Malagos. He has 2 Moonfires.
You could deal with the Lich King just through his hero power, have the ability to defend himself through Spreading Plague.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Spreading Plague punch Arcane Tyrant perhaps this turn. He's going to go ahead Death Grip first. He still has the mana to fit in all of those things too. Finds a Gastropod. That's actually pretty interesting against this board of giant minions, but I don't think he can fit it in this turn because I think the Lich King, he really wants to get that on board. Well, okay, he's actually just gonna play the Gastropod itself. Not gonna go with the Spreading Plague. He's gonna wait.
Okay, he's gonna cycle his Wild Growth too.
He can even make a 3/4 fluked. That's actually kind of interesting.
Now that's funny.
I mean, he needs to stop this. He needs to stop the 9/9 Hooked Reaver. This is one of the best way to do it. Floop on a snail. Is this the first time in history that you've seen this happen?
I don't know. I'm sure some arena players will disagree since Stubborn Gastropod is pretty nuts in that format.
The first time I've ever seen this happen, at least.
Okay.
Moyen does have options to deal with this.
Yeah.
He has a Spellstone that can clear off one of them. He has a Spell Breaker as well.
Yeah, that should be good enough to secure Moyen's position. Bounces back to a nice life total.
If he wants to try and solidify his board against the potential Spreading Plague, he could also just play either Spellbreaker plus Hellfire or play the spell. You gotta get the Hellfire in there in order to do that. But the problem with Hellfiring is you do reduce your life total, and potentially your opponent could just Malagos and kill you. So I think that we'll probably see Spellbreaker plus the Spellstone. Moyen knows that the magic number here is 12 for his life total. That's the damage that Caimiao can do with just double Moonfire plus Malagos.
Yeah, Moyen doesn't really need this Hook Beaver to be active, to be honest. He can definitely win without it. He's got plenty of bombs and heals afterwards.
Yep, and we do see Spellbreaker plus the Spellstone. Moyen back up to 20. And again, that 9/9 untargetable Hooked Reaver is getting some business in.
Yeah, and more importantly, too, is that Moyen's shortening the window for Caimiao to do anything. His Flabindus Floop Scientist has already been used, therefore Malagos burst into a follow Malagos is also out the door.
Finds a second swipe, but again, untargetable. That anti-magic shell is really, really putting Caimiao in an awkward spot against this Hooked Reaver.
Yeah. And I mean, if I'm Caimiao, I might even just cycle again with this Wrath.
The Spreading Plague is going to give him a little bit of breathing room. But again, I agree with you. I think that he needs to do something to dig into his deck because he is not in a spot where he can really keep himself alive for much longer.
Yeah, part of the problem too is that Caimiao lost a really good way to deal with even Warlock over the course of 2 turns, right? By playing Malygos and Moonfiring first, you can also follow up with a Floop. And sometimes you don't even have to Moonfire with Malygos. You can just save it and then follow it with Floop into swipe, Moonfire for the victory. And I think by losing that opportunity, Caimiao is now funneled himself into this specific line of play.
Moyen has a Frostmourne. He could use Frostmourne to kill off one of these minions and then connect with Fortiface.
I like Bone Mare
It
too.
does leave him in a position where he's not actually doing anything else that turn. His hand is full of a lot of expensive things. He doesn't want to play 2 minions though, because if he plays 2 minions, he ends up in a position where he's vulnerable to a Mind Control tech.
True.
He notes that he does not actually hit anything with Skulking Geist.
Actually, it's a really good point. If he knows that Mind Control tech is a possibility,
Ooh, okay.
he sets himself up
If he
for
Shroom
something.
Brewers here, this opens himself up to Mind Control tech, and I think that's what Moyen just realized. I think he just thought, ooh, about to play that Shroom Brewer and realized that could be a disaster if I lose this Hooked Reaver.
That's the main reason why I was looking at Bone Mare. Still cement your board position, very difficult to remove, and most importantly, Mind Control tech.
Yeah, Moyen, he sort of makes the decision partway through his turn.
Oh my.
That is Malygos.
There's a way to do this with Dream Petal Florist now.
Yeah, Caimiao, he can play, if he can survive this turn, if he can just play his Mind Control tech and his Florist and not die, he is guaranteed a 2-mana Malygos with every burn spell in the world in his hand.
Okay, well, there's 17 power on the board for his opponent, and it's very easy to get past the 1 health taunt. So if he goes Dream Petal Florist and tanks up to 22, he could just die.
He's gonna go for it.
Oh my.
He can use a Moonfire and kill. He doesn't need all this damage, right?
Right.
If he has swipe,
definitely
swipe,
doesn't need it.
Moonfire, he still has enough damage to actually end the game. So if he Moonfires the Spellbreaker, he leaves just 13 on the board, and then Moyen would have to get through the taunt and then deal an extra 6.
A tangled web.
If he
If he played Bone Mare, this situation that wouldn't have existed.
No, it would not.
Yeah.
He did not Moonfire.
Oh my gosh.
Does this... He can't Hellfire to get through.
He can Shroom Brewer his 4/3 and then Hell... Oh, no, he can't Hellfire.
If he Shroom Brewers the 9/3 and
Oh, and then
Hellfires,
Dread Infernal. Is that enough?
Dread Infernal plus Hellfire?
No, he's 18.
Oh, this is
That's
so
18.
close.
I wonder.
Oh, Caimiao's holding his hair too. He's not sure if he made it a pretty big gamble.
One of the scary things is there's an unknown Lich King card in Moyen's hand.
Right.
Perhaps he's deduced based on how Moyen has played these turns that it can't be a Death Coil, that it can't be another anti-magic shell. I mean, Moyen did pass last turn with 4 mana up.
Moyen can get out of range of the Malygos combo, I believe. Oh no, because the double Moonfire saved. Oh no, this is... Is he at the tap or something?
I think he might. I think this might be a position where Moyen does not have access to lethal. He has no way to find it.
Yeah, he used both of his Defiles. He can't life tap for anything.
He can hit for 13 plus 5, 18 damage. Yeah, he realizes, I just have to try and stay alive. He's gonna Blood Reaver Gul'dan, go to 25, but that is the full combo available for Caimiao, and by the skin of his teeth, stays alive and bursts down Moyen to bring this to Game 5.
Yeah, you need a little bit of help from Moyen too, but giving him that small window of opportunity, and Caimiao's gonna tie it up and send it to Game 5.
And I think that Moyen, we see the pained look on his face here. I had a chance to talk to him after his earlier match against Caimiao, where he went back and reviewed his games, and there was a moment that he felt like he could have played better in one of the games that he ended up losing a game that he thought he almost had guaranteed to win. I wonder if this is going to shake his confidence.
The good news for Moyen is that this is probably his best matchup from the remaining decks after the
It's true.
bans. Even Warlock versus Zoo can be extremely one-sided in favor of the Even Warlock, upwards to 64% of the time currently, although if you just round it up, it basically wins 2-1.
Yeah, that said, he did just lose a game where he must have felt like a huge favorite, at least at certain points during that game. He had a 9-9 untargetable Hook Reaver for a huge amount of time. His opponent did not answer it, and then just narrowly lost after perhaps being able to give himself a window to win.
Yeah, and it's rooted in logic too, right? If you're in Moyen's spot, you think, well, Skulking Geist removes some of his other better cards in case he has like that second Naturalize, but then he kind of caught himself like, oh wait, Mind Control Tech, what if I just lose this untargetable 9-9 minion that was the entire crux of my strategy? And now Moyen's stuck in a position where he might be second guessing his thoughts.
Right.
A lot of people might think, well, how does experience and composure truly help in a stage like this when you have a lot of time to think? It's more the fact that then you start second guessing every line of play that you're starting to think like, okay, maybe I want to develop the board, and you think, whoa, is that last time that cost me the game? Should I do something else? And that's when you become your own worst enemy.
And when you look at both these players, they're clearly both in their own heads. Moyen just sort of seems to be sitting there, thinking back perhaps on that last game, and that perhaps is a problem for Moyen because yes, he has a great deck full of AoE that can punish the Zoo Warlock, but Keliseth can get those minions out of the range of AoE and make it that much harder for the Even Warlock deck to win.
Yeah, Keliseth is crucial. Soul Infusion, another really good card if you can land on the correct minion, and Caimiao has the doubling imp.
Yeah, this is the recipe for Caimiao taking what could be a very difficult matchup. He has Voidwalker on one or Soul Infusion on one if he wants to get a 4/4 Keliseth. We've seen that before too.
Yeah, 4/4 Keliseth is also a very viable option here, considering Voidwalker doesn't do much. And also, he doesn't have the ability to curve into the doubling imp on turn 3.
Yep.
So I
like this from Caimiao. A lot of players, especially in just playing autopilot, would just, okay, I have a 1-drop, I have this, I have a doubling imp. Well, your curve doesn't let you do that. Your curve wants you to play Keliseth, and then you don't have an opportunity to Soul Infusion on that doubling imp. So now 4/4 coming down, all the pressure on Moyen already this game.
Yeah, and you can see that Moyen, he doesn't have things like Doomsayer in his deck list because he made a different text for the lines that he was expecting. And Caimiao will now have full dominance over the board as early as turn 3.
This is 8 power on turn 3, 4 damage to Moyen's face. He has coin for Twilight Drake, which will help address this board, but Caimiao has the tools to protect it. He still has that Voidwalker in hand. He can push damage to the face and keep his board protected. Ooh. Finds a Soulfire that can do wonders pushing through for the final damage.
Maximum pressure.
Now this, I think, may be a moment where Caimiao takes pause, because if there is a Hook Reaver, he can attack with one of these, put Moyen to 16. Because Moyen used his coin, there's no opportunity to coin and then tap into Hook Reaver. But if he attacks with both, this could enable a 7/7 as soon as the next turn.
Yeah. And he does need to attack too, because then he threatens lethal with the Soulfire.
Yep, he's gonna go ahead and put one of those into the Twilight Drake. If there's a Hellfire here, that means that the Drake will not be able to attack into one of the 4-attack minions and live as well. There's 10 damage on the board for Caimiao. Just a Twilight Drake for Moyen.
I'm actually really intrigued by that trade into the Twilight Drake. It was hedging his bets, but at the same time,
he would have, if there were no Hooked Reaver, if there were no Hooked Reaver or other form of taunt or heal this turn, he would have lethal right now.
No, he didn't even have to attack with the other two. He could have just not traded it in, have the extra 2 damage.
That's true. That is true.
And I think Caimiao's full of a little bit of regrets right now.
Yeah, it's true. I feel like he was trying to hedge against the possibility of that Hellfire, but this damage goes all to the face. Moyen down to 6. He can set up some taunts this turn, though. He has that Sunfare Protector.
Sunfare Protector here is massive, and picks up another taunt minion that doesn't damage himself. The hard thing about Homunculus is you put yourself within range of Soulfire, now he has another taunt minion.
Shields up!
The Gastropod. Last game tried to save Caimiao, perhaps did save Caimiao. Now Moyen hoping it will save him. Trades are a bit awkward thanks to the Dreadlord, but what Moyen needs is time. His hand has Shroom Brewer. he can try to stay alive if he gets a little bit longer in this game.
Yeah, he can take the overtrade onto the doubling him, so that way his minions are much more likely to survive. He still has 3 taunts, so Caimiao has to get past both of these.
And the doubling imp kills the gastropod as well as the 4/4. So I like an attack here on the imp by Moyen.
Voodoo Doctor, not terribly helpful in this situation.
But Caimiao, he has a lot of life to work with. He still has a deck full of minions buffed by Keliseth.
Yep. It's all about whether or not Caimiao feels like he wants to Librarian first here.
If he Librarians first, he could potentially find a Fungal Mancer, which allows him to take value trades on 2 of the taunts here.
I like it.
Fungal
Not
Enchanter.
the wrong fungal guy.
That Fungal Enchanter is still good, though, because he can preserve the board presence of his Dreadlord here. He can attack the Dreadlord into the 4/4. He can kill the Gastropod with his Keliseth, and then heal up his Dreadlord so it's not threatened to just immediately die.
I wonder.
Well, most likely will die if the Gastropod ends up surviving.
Well, the Keliseth can kill the Gastropod.
True.
And then he Fungal Enchanters, then Voodoo Doctors on the Dreadlord, which leaves it as a 4/5.
Okay.
He could even cast the Soulfire if he wants then, too, to kill the Twilight Drake. Or just go face.
Soulfire to the face, no light tap.
Downtown.
4-pointer. Straight to the dome.
Yeah, I like this even better because it does mean Moyen cannot life tap. He cannot Hellfire. He has the life he has to work with, any healing. He can't even play a Vulgar Homunculus.
But he does have healing as soon as next turn. If he can stabilize onto the board, Caimiao needs a Silence or he needs Soulfire. Am I missing anything else?
I believe Leroy Doomguard. He's got a Doomguard in his deck he can find that would end the game this moment.
Oh my gosh, Cold by Librarian gets an extra draw. Tar Creeper's not it. Can he life tap for something? Soulfire
two
off
life,
the
but
top!
that's not enough. Soulfire closes the game. Caimiao advances to the quarterfinals and keeps China's hopes alive.
What a comeback from Caimiao. On the brink of defeat, down 0-2, completes the reverse sweep over Even Warlock, touted as one of the better decks against his aggressive lineup. And now China has a member in the top 8.
So many of those games were just so close. I feel like Moyen will look back at those and try and figure out what he could have done differently, but it is Caimiao's day right now.
I'm speechless. Maybe this guy has a couple words as I believe he's joined by Cora for an interview.
The hope of China is still alive, and Caimiao is moving on to the quarterfinals. Congratulations. You were down 0-2. You had to complete the reverse sweep. How are you feeling right now? What's going on in your head?
恭喜你终于进入8强，然后代表整个中国队非常不容易。然后，请问你现在感觉如何？
很开心吧。然后，我觉得重点还是下一场比赛吧。
I'm really thrilled to make it happen, but I'll stay calm and focus on my next matchup.
I like it. You need to, you know what? Of course, celebrate, because this is a huge victory, not only for you, but for your entire country, for all of the fans watching. But got to stay calm and keep the eyes on the prize, which is, of course, the World Championships. And now I have to ask, because this was not the first time that you and Moyen had played against each other. You, in fact, lost the first time that you played him. What did you do differently this time? Coming into this series, how did you approach the same matchups, knowing that the first time it didn't go your way?
就是在对阵莫言的时候，第一次和他对阵，你是输掉了比赛，但是你是怎么样调整自己，然后赢下这场比赛的呢？
因为第一次的话，我办了萨满。 然后因为萨满在我练习的对局中都很厉害，我打不过。然后后面今天我想试试办盗贼，然后可能会有不一样的东西，我觉得。然后结果还是可以。
So the first time I figured out maybe his shaman could be very powerful, so I banned his shaman, but it didn't work out well. So I tried to approach it differently. So this time I banned his rogue. and it works. I'm happy with it.
Learned from the mistakes, but ultimately you were able to turn it around, and you are the one who has secured the spot in the quarterfinals. And that means you are the only Chinese player advancing from groups. Do you feel a sense of pride from that, or do you feel pressure knowing that a lot is relying on you right now?
那你现在就是可能要孤身一人代表整个中国队来面对之后8强的比赛，你感觉是目前是怎样的一个感觉呢？是有没有什么额外的压力？
压力肯定有，然后我会带着大家一起的期待，一起努力进4强的。
Of course, I'm rather stressed, but I think I'll bring all the hopes on me and make it to top 4.
Well, you, sir, are doing your country and your fans proud. Let's give a round of applause to Caimiao from China. He is moving on to the quarterfinals. And now we can go ahead and send it back to the casters and get our next series underway.
Congratulations to Caimiao as he takes a hard-fought series over Moyen. I'm sure that's not the last we'll be seeing of Moyen. Probably a lot of regrets on both sides going into that series. But at the end of the day, Caimiao advances to tomorrow where we play Bloody Face in the top 8.
Yeah, and worth noting, that was our first reverse sweep of the entire tournament. We had no players come back from a 0-2 deficit prior to that. And I do want to say, I feel like, yes, he drew that soul fire the last possible turn, but Caimiao gave himself, well, not the last possible turn, but on the last turn, he gave himself so many great opportunities throughout that match. The way he played that Malagos Druid game, I think was fantastic. We were talking, oh, does he need to moonfire the Spellbreaker to keep himself alive? He realized that, no, he did not. And he actually needed that damage to beat the Gul'dan that turn. So he just navigated that so well, and I'm super impressed and happy to see him play tomorrow.
Yeah, it always comes down to 1 damage. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. But we have still a lot more Hearthstone to be played. We have 2 players through to the top 8 from Elimination Day. 2 will join them. Who is it going to be between Hatul from Israel and Language Hacker from Canada? Don't go anywhere. More Hearthstone Championship Tour action right after this.